There's a lot of people out there that want to get help, but there's this stigma around not being able to afford it.
I think you're completely correct. Wellness, in a word, has always been affluent. It's unattainable for most people.
The information is out there, but people don't know where to find it.
It's not just about talking, it's also about having the right support.
Can you explain exactly what the Global Wellness Institute is?
The Institute essentially sits to amplify the messages that we discover from doing this work and ensure that the research is valid, robust, and can be trusted.
Let's first start by talking about stigma. We got mental health advocate and advisor to the Global Wellness Institute, Freddie Moreau's here today to talk to us about how the mental health systems are failing us. Freddie, you came all the way from the UK over here to talk about it. Let's first start by talking about stigma. There's a lot of people out there that want to get help, but there's this stigma around not being able to afford it. And that prevents them from taking that first step. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's a serious problem, and I think you're completely correct. Wellness, in a word, has always been affluent. You know, it's for a particular type of person who can afford to go on luxury spa retreats, get massages, you know, do all these preventative healthcare things, and it's unattainable for most people. So I think what's been interesting to watch, particularly with the rise of social media, is how damaging social media is for mental health, but how much it's opened up people's minds to wanting to understand it better. And so it's been it's like a double-edged sword to some degree, where now people are having conversations. That being said, I think there's a long way to go. I think there's, it's not just about talking, it's also about having the right support. So it's one thing to have conversations, and you introduced me as a mental health advocate. I'm a real believer in being able to open up and talk and communicate. It's important. But I'm also a real believer in action. And I think one thing that needs to happen is there needs to be a value associated to mental health. I mean, talk about the music industry. You've got these artists who are commercial machines, particularly if you're successful. You just rinse and repeat on tour all the time. And it is hard. It's inhuman. When I think things have really shifted and things are in a place where mental health is understood, it's when in the boardrooms, when you're deciding the tours, that the conversation is this good for so-and-so artist? Is this okay? Do we want to put them through this? It's not just about the bottom line, it's about the humanity and the long-term effects.
I say this all the time. I've sat in thousands of meetings on the record side in the business with agents, managers, label executives, and I always say, like, never once has the artist's mental well-being been brought up. It's make a record, get on the road, get on tour, get back in the studio, make a record, get on the road, and no depression, no anxiety, no stress, no addiction, nothing is brought up. They're like, we want to be in the black, figure it out. And they don't care, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing, because we believe that, you know, the artists on the music side of things, that it needs to be addressed, right? They'll be better off, the record companies will be better off in the long run if we're able to do that and communicate. Let's talk about the over-reliance on medication.
It's interesting because I think everyone thinks about those headlines of, you know, addiction to these, you know, to oxy, to the big drugs, the things that, you know, the bad behaviors that people are doing. But it's the reliance on it it's systemic within these professional environments where travel is a requirement, particularly in, you know, artists, athletes, you know, things like sleep medication. It's crazy the amount of sleep medication that's prescribed to professional athletes and sports people as they travel around different states, countries, and they have to do this. And it's just a common thing, and people just prescribe out. And I think to come back to your question of funding around it, I think from a long time, you know, you look at the state of play of what gets into the market, and for the most important thing is evidence-based and making sure that there is a responsible use case that works for these types of things. And so who funds that? It's the companies who are going to benefit from the sale of it, and they want to package a product, which is a pill, which you can then take, and they'll fund the research to ensure it works, and there's a model there, there's a framework, and it works. In breaking out from that model, you have to think quite creatively about, okay, well, can you create commercial value out of new tools that don't have to be medicated, but can have the same level of rigor and validation, or at the very least, have a very soft entry so that you can build it over time as you grow and as you develop your understanding. So I think more people are understanding the value of preventative healthcare. I think that's, the Global Wellness Institute, which I sit on the board of, has done an incredible job of bringing together experts across different fields, from the Mayo Clinic to the Cleveland Clinic to Surgeon Generals, the healthcare side of things, to understand it's not just about the research, which is obviously the engine, it's the critical, important thing that sits behind it, but it's the distribution.
So how do we continue to further these conversations? Because I think the information is out there, but people don't know where to find it. Or again, to my first point earlier, there's a lack of funding.
I think understanding who the trusted authorities are in the space, so you can go and rely on the information you're gathering. So clearly the World Health Organization within healthcare, it's a trusted authority. The Global Wellness Institute within wellness, it's a trusted authority. Knowing that these are destinations that have to have brand awareness built around them, they have to have strong marketing strategies to continue building those foundations. In healthcare, you have the FDA that can stamp new products, right? Music doesn't have that compliance level yet. So we have to build to it. So, for instance, I've founded an initiative within the Global Wellness Institute, which I chair, called the Music for Health and Wellbeing Initiative. That's all about trying to come together with cross-sectional support from the music industry, from the major streaming platforms who are responsible for distributing stuff, to the labels, to the new technologies, to understand what's best in class look like, and how do we create a singular authority that can support the industry, but most importantly, support the listeners to be able to know where they're getting their source of information. So it's not just about slapping on a sleep playlist and not knowing who curated it. It's about knowing that sleep playlist has been curated by Spotify, who do this, and the content is by Mindstream, who do this, right? And that authority is required not just in music, which is obviously what I can talk about with confidence, but any tool that fits within the preventative healthcare or the wellness space.
For our listeners out there and our viewers out there, can you explain exactly what the Global Wellness Institute is?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Global Wellness Institute was founded by an amazing thought leader called Susie Ellis, and her partner Nancy Davis has been supporting her grow it since. And essentially it is the leading academic institute, non-for-profit, that sits across the $5.6 trillion wellness industries. And that includes, if you go to their website, globalwellnessinstitute.org, I believe, you will find their bubble chart, which essentially defines all these areas of the industry, from the $100 billion spa industry to the major wellness tourism industry to the beauty and skincare. These are big industries with a lot of commercial players in it. And what the institute does is they provide a common source of language, so definitions of what is wellness tourism. They define that, they conduct research, they understand, they collect data around the industry to be able to provide and write important trends to understand where the industry is shifting. So not only do they publish what's happening, but they also showcase the individual trends within it, and they give that to people for free to be able to download, understand, and digest. It's an amazing research organization. Research is the fundamental foundations of the Institute. And the way that it delivers a lot of its core output is through these different initiatives. And these cover different aspects of the industry, ran by chairs of different parts of that industry, so commercial leaders in their space. The one that I'm building now is the Music for Health and Wellbeing Initiative. The reason why I wanted to put it together is I think there is a desperate need for the Spotifys, the Amazons, the people who program this functional music and have it consumed most widely. I mean, 5% of all streams at the moment, thereabouts, so like 12 billion streams a month at the moment on Spotify, for instance, come from wellness music categories.
Wow.
So as that evolves and progresses, the strategies for those programmers need to be supported so that they can understand the latest science. You can't expect a Spotify playlister to be able to read every piece of literature out there and make the right decision every time, because that's not their core role. So what you want to do is you want to engage them in the process so that they can have a trusted authority in the space. So that initiative, it will be a cross-sectional support from the major streaming platforms through to the labels, the content creators, a lot of researchers and neuroscientists, because clearly that's, again, the engine behind what we're trying to accomplish. But the Institute essentially sits to amplify the messages that we discover from doing this work and ensure that the research is valid, robust, and can be trusted.
If you like what you heard, give us a thumbs up, plant a comment, or even go check out mindstream.com and let Freddie know what you think. Until next time, This is Misunderstood.